Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. So I saw this comment from one of our viewers and he said, I am a Filipino American and never again will I talk to a Filipina because this Filipina I was talking to was constantly asking me for money. So I thought I'll go ahead and talk about this. Maybe you have heard of this issue before. Maybe you're going through that kind of situation. There's two questions in this conversation. Do Filipinas ask for money and why do Filipinas ask for money? So let's answer the first part. Do Filipinas ask for money? Yes, the sad reality is that there are some Filipinas who do this. However, most decent Filipinas will not ask you for money, especially very early on in your relationship. Those who blatantly ask for money, they know that you are desperate to get on her good side and she's using that leverage to take advantage of you. In some cases, it is the foreigner who offers to help, some with good intentions and some with the hopes of starting a relationship with her. I personally think that is not a good way to start. A lot of times, this kind of setup, they do end up really badly. So let's say you've been talking to your Filipina for quite a while now. Let's say about a year. Maybe you've already met her. Maybe you're about to meet her. So in that situation, you've already somewhat established your relationship with her and then she asks you for money. She asks you for help. What do you do? So here is my opinion on this. If this is a one-time occurrence where she really has a dire situation, let's say one of her family member is in the hospital, needing surgery, that kind of life and death situation, and then she goes and asks you for help. That doesn't mean she's trying to take advantage of you. It simply means she's really desperate for help. It is important to understand that life in a third world country like the Philippines, that kind of situation can be very desperate for a lot of people. Here in the US, for most people, that is manageable because most people have healthcare insurance. Some people have emergency funds. Some people have credit cards they can use for that kind of, emergency situation. Those options, a lot of times, they're not available in the Philippines. So when people get into that kind of difficulty, they become very desperate. And for some Filipinas, asking for help, that takes a lot of courage. But if she thinks she can trust you, she thinks she can lean on you, then she will ask for help. Now, does that make her a scammer? Does that make her a bad person? No, it just makes her a desperate person. Now, what can you do in that kind of situation? Well, you have options. First, if you want to help her, that's very important. You have to want to help her. You don't want to be forced into helping somebody just because you feel bad for them. Now, if you have the financial means to help someone, to help her, and you trust her, then yeah, you can go ahead and help her. Now, what if you're in a situation where you may want to help, but then financially you're also having difficulty? Well, the best thing you can do is to be honest with her. Tell her, yeah, I would have loved to help, but unfortunately, I don't have the financial means to do so. Explain to her your situation. If she loves you, she will understand. Now, what if you have hesitations? You have reservations, you don't feel comfortable. The best thing you can do is to say no. Say no. You don't have to help. Despite her sad situation, at the end of the day, you're not obligated to help anyone. And when it comes to helping, I feel like, personally, I think that should be voluntary. I don't see the point of helping someone if you feel forced to do so. So yeah, you can always say no. I think I've heard of the stories where foreigners complain about this situation, but then they continue to give money. I find that to be like, that is not a good situation. You don't really want to help if you're forced to help or you just feel bad for someone. You want to help because you're helping out of the goodness of your heart. Now, there are some cases where the Filipina may not even want to ask you for money, but her family, specifically her parents, might ask her to do so. Now, this is not the case for all Filipino parents, okay? But some parents, they want to test on how serious you are in pursuing their daughter. This is an expectation they have from all suitors, not just foreigners, but also Filipino suitors. And this is not to take advantage of you. This is just a difference in culture. After all, most parents, they want to make sure that their daughter will be treated well, that she will be taken care of. However, there are some, again, some, because this is not the case for all Filipino families, but some families, some parents, they want to test if you're also capable of supporting the family. Now, for a Westerner's point of view, that seems ridiculous. That's hard to understand, right? To better understand this mindset, you must dig deep into the culture. The Asian culture have this virtue of filial piety. I'm going to put it on the screen. The virtue of showing love and respect for one's parents, elders, and ancestors. And with the Filipino culture, we combine that with the virtue of utang na loob, which translates to debt of gratitude. Now, those virtues are good virtues, but unfortunately, some parents, I say some because this is not the case for, most Filipino parents, but some parents use these virtues to their advantage. They will provide for their children well, they will, make sacrifices, and they will make big investments when it comes to their children's education, specifically college educations. And some of these parents have these hopes of getting a return out of that investment. Some of these parents also have this expectation that when the children become adults, become young professional, they become stable and get good paying jobs, they will reciprocate that kind of sacrifice that they've done for their children. Now, it is also important to understand that some of these parents think this way because in the Philippines, there's really no good or reliable retirement system. Most people who have retirement are people who work for the government. But for most people, for example, overseas Filipino workers, a lot of those people, they don't have a retirement system. So they put a lot of investments on their children with the expectation that their children will take care of them in their old age. Another thing about the culture is that it is most people would frown upon children who would put their parents, their aging parents, in those old people's retirement places. Is that what you call it? That's not very common in the Philippines. Most Filipino families, we keep our aging parents at home until they pass. That's just the culture. Now there are some cases where some parents do end up going to retirement home, but it's very rare. So yes, most of the time, in most cases, we keep our aging parents at home. So yes, that is the expectation. Now, there are cases, there unfortunately there are some parents who have this kind of expectation, the same expectation, even though they did not put any type of investment on their children, whether that's a choice or they don't have the means to do so. This is a problem in the Philippines. We have a overpopulation and a lot of people don't do family planning. So people just keep having children. And a lot of times, they can't afford to provide for their kids. Most of these kids don't go to college. So these kids, when they grow up, they become adults, they have a very difficult, life. And it is very hard for those children to, I mean, they become adults, right? It's very hard for them to also support their parents when they're barely scraping by. So that kind of situation is hard. So let's say your Filipina has that kind of situation where it is the first scenario or the second scenario. Like, what do you do? Like, what if she wants to help her family? So let's say this is your Filipina situation. She's asking you for money because her family or her parents might have asked her to do so. What can you do in that kind of scenario, that kind of situation? Well, this is where you're gonna see the cultural differences, and the best thing to do here is to respect the differences. You don't have to compromise on this because, again, if she loves you, she will respect the differences. I personally, if I was in that position, I would not even ask because, I mean, it's common sense. Not everybody will understand that kind of culture. And if she loves you, if she cares for you, she would not do that. Now, what if she asked? Well, you can say no. You don't have to compromise. Now, if you decide, okay, I want to do that, I want to help you, I want to help your family, then that's something you agreed upon. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, and most people would probably not feel comfortable doing that, especially if you're not really married yet. And that's not something that's not your responsibility. So if she approaches you, she asks you for help for her family, you don't have to give help. You don't have to help. You don't have to give any money. Okay, I want to clarify that. Now, most decent Filipinos won't even ask you that, even if her family asks her to do so. So let's say you're already married and then you're Filipina, she wants to help her family. What can you do in that situation? So the best advice I can give to a Filipina, if you want to help your family, you want to support your family, the best thing you can do, and this is based on my personal experience, the best thing you can do is to get yourself a job. Go work, make your own money, and help your family. I don't think it is right to impose that helping your family to your husband, to your foreign husband, because this is where you're gonna have to kind of learn how to either compromise or respect the differences in culture. Now, if the foreign husband decides or he decides, I have the financial means to do so, I want to help, then that's fine. But if that's not something he wants to do, but that's something you want to do, you can pursue that by going to work. Now, what if, you both decided, we're gonna start having children, and then you're gonna, the woman will stay at home. What do you do in that situation? Well, it depends on the financial situation. If financially you have the financial means to do so, then yes, you can go ahead and help. But if financially you're also having a hard time, I think it's logical to, you have to do what's right. It's hard to help others when you're barely scraping by, right? That's just the reality. So let's say when it comes to the helping, and I think this is where a lot of times there's like issues that arise. When it comes to helping, it is also good to agree on how much you can help. Because when it comes to helping like Filipino families, and I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but sometimes you do end up creating that dependency. And it's very important. Personally, I think help is good. It is a good virtue, helping others. But you also have to allow other people to become self reliant. So when you help, it has to be the type of help that allows other people to be able to stand on their own feet. You know that saying is a proverb, I can't remember exactly, it says, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That kind of, there's a lot of types of help that will be beneficial for everybody. For example, helping the siblings to go finish their college education. That's a good way to help, because eventually they'll be able to support themselves. Hopefully they can get a good job, and then you don't have to constantly help them. The business, if she has a family who's business oriented, now that's kind of iffy for some, because not every family is good at business. But if they're able to handle a business, then yeah, you can give them a capital, let them run the business, and then they can support themselves. Those kind of help. What I'm trying to say is, you don't want to just constantly give and give and give, and then you make people dependent on that help, because it's not always going to be the case where you always get something to give. So what happens if, that help, end? It's everybody will be in a dire situation, right? So that's my opinion on that. So those of you who are talking to a Filipina who's constantly asking for money, the type that's on schedule. I've heard of the stories before, horror stories. The type of Filipinos who's constantly coming up with situations, sad stories to make you feel bad for her so you could give her more money. How do you handle that kind of situation? Well, you don't. You just get yourself out of the situation. Cut the communication. Don't allow yourself to get manipulated, because that is very dangerous scenario, situation. Again, lots of situations here. I feel like I've said situation like so many times today. All right. So yes, a lot of these Filipinas, they've learned the trade of scamming foreigners by, telling their sad stories. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes some of these Filipinas are connected to gangs, mafia. So you have to be very careful. Sometimes some foreigners feel like, well, I've lost so much already. I'm so invested already. Well, you just have to cut the communication. Stop talking to her, because you're just, you're digging your own grave. That's not gonna end. You're gonna find yourself in a situation where, again, you're gonna find yourself in a situation where you're broke. Sad reality. All right, that is my video for today. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope I've given some valuable information. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye, guys.